G'day folks, and welcome to Robbie's River Roundup for Friday the 12th of December 2014, proudly brought to you by Adventure Camping and Fishing at 14 Rowan Street, Wangaratta, where I went in the other day and I bought these new U-Butte polarised glasses. Look at that, complete angler brand of polarised sunglasses for just 30 bucks, and they are that good that I can almost see into the murky water of the Ovens River at the moment. And when I say murky, it is murky. We had an absolute deluge of rain last Saturday. If you saw the news, you would have seen us. Wangaratta actually made the national news, and it wasn't for murder or drugs or anything like that. It was because of a freak thunderstorm we had. We had a 1 in a 100 year rain event last Saturday. Now I'm 40. Well, I'm 40 next year, and I reckon that's about the 15th 1 in 100 year rain event that we've had while I've been alive. But anyway, what I'm saying is correct. The rivers are quite murky. We did have a lot of rain. The bad news is we had 50 millimetres of rain in 1 hour. The good news is it wasn't very widely distributed. Albury-Wodonga had 7 millimetres of rain that day, and from that storm they had 2 millimetres. Benalla had 2 millimetres of rain that day. Wangaratta ended up with 63 millimetres, so it wasn't widespread. What that means is that there are areas of dirty water at the moment, but not everywhere is written off completely. I'm out here on the Ovens River at Tarrawingi. I am on the upstream side of Wangaratta. They didn't get much rain out here from that 60 millimetre storm. I think they might have only had about 20 mils from what I've been told. The river is dirty. Mount Hotham had 83 millimetres, which is where the Ovens River comes from. Falls Creek had 68 or 63 from memory. So there is a bit of water pushing down, but they weren't, those falls of that magnitude were not widespread. So, as it is at the moment, the Ovens River downstream of Wangaratta is very dirty. The further down you get, the dirtier it is. Upstream of Wangaratta, here at Tarrawingi, it is quite murky. I can see probably about 18 inches into the water, not quite 2 feet, should be able to see 4 or 5 feet. So it is quite murky, but the good news is it is improving, and as the weekend gets here it will be improved even more, and it is fishable. It's far from perfect, but it's far from written off either. Somewhere in the middle, and I think fish will be caught in the Ovens River this week. The King River hasn't been affected as bad. They didn't get as much rain up there in the King River catchment. So the river, I can say the King River is a bit higher. It's probably close to a foot higher than normal at the moment around Wangaratta. And it is a bit off colour, but it's also improving. Last week's deluge of rain was just a slight inconvenience. Within the next couple of weeks it'll flush out, but in that time it is already improving. The far lower reaches of the Ovens River are pretty much a no-go zone. That's almost written off. I'll tell you why. That big rain event, we had over 60 millimetres of rain in Wangaratta, as I said. Most of the rainfall that falls in Wangaratta itself washes in the stormwater drains off the roofs of supermarkets. Obviously none of it soaks into the ground because it's all concrete being a town. Most of that water then flows into the 1 Mile Creek in Wangaratta. The 1 Mile Creek had a massive rise of water. It flooded a couple of bridges and whatnot. But that 1 Mile Creek then drains into the 3 Mile Creek, which is the lower reaches of the 15 Mile Creek, which is the same thing. The 1 Mile Creek runs into there, down near the Waldara Golf Course. It then flows down towards Yarrawonga, and it runs into the Ovens River at Walnut Grove. So most of the damage from that storm that fell in Wangaratta last week will be entering the Ovens River about 5 or 6 kilometres downstream of Wangaratta. In saying that, not all of it will. There was still quite a bit that went in, but most of that has flushed out too. The flush we're getting now is from the same rain event that hit the headwaters of the river. So this weekend, head upstream a little bit looking for some clearer water. The Kiewa River has had a big flush. I heard it was quite dirty at one stage. I've also heard that it's receding quite quickly and it's starting to clear up, but it's flowing pretty strong. By the weekend, if I was a betting man, I would say that by the weekend it should be clearing a little bit. It should be reasonably clear, but it might be a little bit higher. The King River, a little bit the same. Not quite as clear as it could be, but not too bad. The Ovens River is going to be a bit cloudy. Upstream of Wangaratta is going to be not so bad. The further up you go, the clearer it will be. The Broken River, I haven't heard any reports, but just looking at the rainfall maps, there wasn't a lot of rain in that area. And I doubt that the Broken River was hardly affected at all by last week's rain. The trout streams will all be looking good. The water will have flushed out by then. That rainfall was last Saturday, so by this Saturday it's going to be 7 days, and in upstream terms in the middle of December that water will be well and truly gone. So if you're trout fishing, ignore the rain. It's had no impact as of now. just the lower reaches of the rivers that are going to be impacted the most. Right, now that we've got that out of the way, check this out. This is a Bassman Buzzbait. See that? A Bassman Buzzbait. What that is, that's a surface lure. It's not like a paddler, like a Coolabung codwalker or anything like that. It's like a surface spinnerbait. I'll put the rod down. It's got a little clicker on it right there. As the water hits it, as that's moving through the water, it forces that little propeller to spin around like that. Now, with the water pressure, it forces that little clicker to sit back there, so that when it spins, it's actually hard to do by hand, it makes a trrrr noise. And that makes quite a lot of noise on the water. It also is quite a long tail. This is actually broken a little bit off the bottom of its tail here. Let me turn it that way. But it sort of ends like a spinnerbait. That half is a buzzbait, that part is similar to a spinnerbait. That comes through the water, it goes and attracts a lot of attention, and the fish looks up and sees that and says, yum. With a surface lure, if you get a surface strike, which we otherwise know as a boof, and that boof fails to hook up, well then you can leave it sit there and just let it float for a little while. You can't do that with these because they sink. They sink very slowly, and with their design, the moment you start turning them, they come straight to the surface. So you can fish them quite slowly, but the moment you stop it will sink. So if you fail to hook up, reel it in and have another cast. Another thing about the buzzbait is that the boof isn't as loud and spectacular as what it is with a surface lure that goes plop, 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 plop along the surface. The reason being, a lot of it sits under the water that little bit lower, and the Murray cod don't like to break the surface unless they have to. So they'll just hit it just under the water, you will get a boil, you will get a boof, and sometimes it will be quite spectacular, but not as spectacular. But the good thing about it is the noise and disturbance it makes. These things sound unreal, like a little helicopter coming through the water. Now if you hear now, you can hear the cicadas in the tree. Hear them? Can you? Can you? Can you? Well, this sounds a little bit like that with the brrrr noise that it makes. I'll flick it out in the water in a second, you'll hear it. These are particularly useful in areas with a lot of cicadas. In other words, they're great in the summer months when it's really hot and there's cicadas around. And the fish are active. Murray cod like cicadas, and that's what they take off the surface a lot of the time. And when you've got something making a disturbance on the water that sounds a bit like a cicada, it is going to attract plenty of Murray cod attention. Buzzbaits, something that I reckon you should always have in your tackle box. Whether you use it every time or not is irrelevant, but when it's hot and it's humid and there's cicadas around, you're going to wish you had a Bassman Buzzbait in your tackle box. Let's kind of have a flick with it. There we go then.